You submit your International Enforcement Organization application thinking you'll chase passport forgers and track down missing persons across borders. What you don't know is that your first assignment will involve watching a crisis unfold in real time through satellite feeds, knowing that thousands of lives hang in the balance, while bureaucratic protocols prevent you from taking any immediate action. Because Interpol agents don't handle neighborhood crime or simple fraud cases, they navigate networks that span multiple continents, operate through shell companies registered in dozens of countries, and make decisions where every possible choice carries profound consequences. The cases you'll work on involve state-sponsored operations, international trafficking rings, and terrorist cells that have infiltrated legitimate businesses across the globe. And the worst part? Some of the most dangerous threats you'll encounter are protected by diplomatic immunity, government contracts, and the very international treaties that Interpol operates under. But what nobody tells you about this career path is that your biggest enemy won't always be the criminals you're hunting. Sometimes it's the constraints of the system you're sworn to serve. Level 1, the breaking point. The address they give you leads to an unmarked building in Lyon that could house any multinational corporation. Glass facade, professional landscaping, nothing that would attract attention from the thousands of people who pass by daily. But take the elevator to the basement levels and everything changes. You enter a room filled with wall-to-wall screens showing live satellite feeds, surveillance footage, and real-time communications intercepts from across 6 continents. Each monitor displays a different crisis unfolding somewhere in the world. A kidnapping in progress in Southeast Asia, a trafficking route being established through Eastern Europe, intelligence suggesting an imminent attack in a major city. This is happening right now, every second of every day, the training supervisor explains, gesturing toward the screens. Your role is to gather intelligence, analyze patterns, and coordinate with local authorities when action becomes legally possible. You watch for 6 consecutive hours. Situations develop and escalate while you document them in reports. People in desperate circumstances appear on screen, unaware that someone thousands of miles away is watching, wanting to help, but bound by jurisdictional limitations and international protocols. Then comes the test scenario that breaks most candidates. Monitor 3 shows a situation developing rapidly. You could potentially save one person by compromising an ongoing operation that might prevent a larger incident affecting hundreds. Standard protocol says wait for authorization, but authorization takes time. What's your decision? The weight of that choice settles on your shoulders. You realize that every future decision will carry similar impossible calculations. You make your call, and in that moment, something fundamental shifts inside you. And that's when you realize you were never there to stop it. You were there to watch it unfold. Welcome to the reality of international law enforcement. Level 2, the first betrayal. Training doesn't happen in sterile classrooms with textbooks. It's designed as controlled chaos, testing your judgment under pressure while teaching you to operate in environments where information is incomplete and alliances are temporary. You're paired with Maria Santos, a brilliant analyst from Barcelona with expertise in financial crimes and digital forensics. Over months of joint exercises, you develop genuine trust. She covers your blind spots during surveillance simulations. You support her during high-pressure briefings. You share strategies for tracking money flows through cryptocurrency exchanges and offshore banking networks. Your partnership becomes a model for other trainees, until everything unravels in a single morning. Operations you'd planned together fail before they begin. Targets disappear hours before coordinated arrests across multiple countries. Information you'd gathered through weeks of careful investigation somehow reaches the wrong hands. The pattern becomes undeniable. Someone with access to your work is feeding intelligence to the subjects of your investigations. When the truth emerges, it hits like a physical blow. Maria wasn't just compromised, she was the compromise. Every conversation you'd had, every strategy you'd shared, every moment of trust you'd built, all of it was being transmitted to test your operational security awareness. But here's what makes it worse. Your supervisors knew. They allowed it to continue. They let real operations suffer to see how long it would take you to identify the security breach. Trust is an operational weakness, they explained during your debriefing. In the field, your survival depends on verification, not faith. From that day forward, every partnership becomes a careful balance of cooperation and suspicion. Every ally carries a question mark. Level 3, the footage. Your assignment to the Cybercrime Analysis Division seems like a step toward normal police work until you open your first case file. It's a single incident, one moment captured by multiple surveillance systems from different angles. What appears straightforward on first viewing becomes infinitely complex under analysis. You spend weeks examining every frame. Facial recognition software identifies individuals, traffic cameras track vehicle movements, financial records reveal payment patterns, communication intercepts provide context. Slowly, a network emerges. Shell companies in Luxembourg connected to construction contracts in Africa, cryptocurrency transfers that trace back to accounts in Singapore, travel patterns that suggest coordination across time zones. The investigation leads to someone whose name appears on government advisory boards, whose company holds contracts with humanitarian organizations, whose public image is built on charitable work. Your evidence is comprehensive, your case is legally sound, your documentation could support prosecutions across multiple jurisdictions. Then you submit your report and wait. Weeks pass, then months. Inquiries about your case receive vague responses about ongoing evaluation and jurisdictional complexities. Eventually, a supervisor explains the reality. Sometimes the people we investigate are also people we need for other operations. It's not about right or wrong, it's about which priorities take precedence. That's when you understand that justice isn't your primary objective. It's balanced. Level 4, the impossible choice. 3 years into your career, you're embedded in an operation that took 8 months to establish. You've built an identity, earned trust within a network you're investigating, and gained access to information that could dismantle a significant trafficking operation. Then you witness something that changes everything. Real people in real danger, not abstract intelligence or theoretical threats, but individuals whose circumstances you could potentially change with immediate action. The choice becomes stark. Maintain your cover and continue gathering intelligence that might eventually help hundreds of victims, or act now to help the people in front of you and lose everything you've built. You know the protocol, you know the broader mission, you understand the mathematics of potential impact. You also know that choosing the mission means those specific individuals will continue suffering while you document their circumstances for eventual action. You make the calculated decision. You maintain your cover, file your reports, and continue the operation. Later, when the coordinated arrests finally happen, you learn that some of those people you could have helped didn't survive long enough to be rescued. The weight of that choice never fully leaves you. Level 5, the hunt. Your assignment to a fugitive task force represents a promotion, elite agents tracking high-value targets across multiple continents. Your first major case involves 2 years of investigation, false identities in Eastern Europe, financial networks spanning 3 continents, close calls in cities from Prague to Nairobi. Finally, everything aligns. You have a location, a plan, and coordination with local authorities in 4 countries. The operation unfolds flawlessly, every checkpoint is secured, every escape route is covered, every contingency has been planned. You breach the location and find it empty. Not just abandoned, deliberately cleared, no evidence left behind except a single note. Greetings to our friends at Interpol, better luck next time. The message is signed with details about your operation that should have been known only to your team. In that moment, you realize that while you were hunting your target, you were simultaneously being studied by them. Your methods, your patterns, your operational preferences, all of it was being analyzed and used against you. The hunter had become the hunted without ever knowing it. You weren't one step behind. You were exactly where they wanted you to be. Level 6, the network. Years of cases reveal patterns that shouldn't exist but undeniably do. You start connecting dots across investigations. The same offshore companies appear in different contexts. Financial transfers that link seemingly unrelated cases, travel patterns that suggest coordination between groups that officially have no contact. Your analysis reveals something that challenges everything you understood about international crime. It's not chaotic or disorganized. It's structured, interconnected, and often operates with implicit understanding of law enforcement capabilities and limitations. You gather evidence of these connections, enough documentation to reshape how international enforcement approaches organized crime. But presenting this evidence would also reveal how much illegal activity operates with tacit acceptance from various government agencies who find it useful for their own purposes. The choice becomes clear: expose the network and destabilize international cooperation relationships, or document it quietly and work within the reality of compromised systems. You choose to work within the system, because sometimes the truth is less important than stability. And that's when it hits you. The system doesn't fail. It decides what failure looks like. Level 7, the reflection. A decade into your career, you're assigned to interview a survivor of a trafficking operation you investigated years earlier. She describes her experience in detail: the places she was held, the people who controlled her situation, the moments when she hoped for rescue that didn't come immediately. Then she shows you something that stops you cold. A photograph from a news report about the investigation. In the background, barely visible, is a figure she remembers. You. Standing outside the building where she was held, taking surveillance photos, gathering evidence for the case that would eventually lead to prosecutions and convictions. To you, it was part of a careful, methodical investigation that followed proper procedures and ultimately succeeded. To her, you weren't an investigator. You weren't part of a larger mission. You were just someone who saw her and chose to walk away. And in her memory, there's no difference between you and the people who held her there. That's when it breaks you. Because for the first time, you don't see yourself as part of the solution. You see yourself as part of the delay. That perspective shift hits harder than any physical blow. You realize that victims don't distinguish between criminals and the people whose jobs require them to witness suffering while building cases for eventual justice. Level 8, the system. Senior positions come with access to decision-making processes you never saw before. You attend briefings where operations are evaluated not just for their legal merit, but for their political implications, economic consequences, and diplomatic ramifications. You discover that some criminal networks are allowed to operate because disrupting them would interfere with intelligence-gathering operations. Some investigations are delayed because prosecution would compromise ongoing diplomatic negotiations. You sit in rooms where trade-offs are discussed openly, accepting certain levels of illegal activity to prevent worse outcomes, allowing some criminals to operate freely in exchange for information about others, maintaining working relationships with corrupt officials because they provide access to regions where official cooperation doesn't exist. The system isn't broken by incompetence or corruption. It's deliberately complex because simple solutions don't work in a world where every action has international consequences. Level 9, the choice. After 15 years, you have access to information that could reshape public understanding of international law enforcement. You know which operations have failed due to political interference. You know which criminals operate with unofficial protection. You know how many times national security has been used to justify overlooking crimes. You also know what happens to people who try to expose these realities publicly. Career destruction, legal challenges, personal safety concerns, isolation from colleagues and professional networks. You have enough evidence to force accountability. You also have enough experience to know the cost. The choice isn't between right and wrong, it's between different types of consequences. You decide to remain inside the system, working for incremental improvements rather than revolutionary change. Because sometimes the most effective criticism comes from voices that maintain institutional credibility. Level 10, the monster. Retirement brings perspective that working inside the system was never allowed. You review your career with the clarity that only distance provides. The cases that succeeded and changed lives for the better, the operations that failed despite best efforts, the decisions that still keep you awake at night. You tell yourself that you made a difference. The statistics support that belief: networks dismantled, victims rescued, criminals prosecuted. But you also know the cost of that success. The compromises you accepted, the times you followed protocol instead of conscience, the moments when you chose operational effectiveness over immediate justice. The hardest truth isn't about the criminals you encountered or the system you served. It's about what you became in order to survive and succeed within constraints that demanded moral flexibility. You're not the person who first walked into that building in Lyon years ago. And deep down, you already know the answer. You didn't just adapt to the system. You became exactly what the system needed you to be. If you've made it this far, you've seen a version of reality that most people will never encounter. The world of international law enforcement isn't filled with clear heroes and obvious villains. It's populated by people making difficult decisions within impossible constraints. Subscribe if you want more stories that reveal the complexity behind systems we take for granted. Hit the like button if this changed your perspective on international justice. And tell me in the comments, when the choice is between immediate action and long-term impact, which path would you choose? Because understanding that dilemma is the first step toward understanding why these institutions operate the way they do. Sometimes the line between protection and compromise is thinner than anyone wants to acknowledge. Because the most dangerous people aren't the ones outside the system. They're the ones inside it, who have learned how to live with it.